This week's edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com. Welcome to the next edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We've got a double feature today. We've got Faith Jessie and Zach Merchant from 11 Alive WXIA, the hosts of the sort of new political show, The Georgia Vote. And we're going to talk a little more about that and a little more about the coolest thing about Zach and the coolest thing about Jessie. And as always, I give them a little heads up because that's always the hardest question. So good morning, folks.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mitch.
So let's talk first about what is the Georgia Vote? What is the show all about? And where can people find that?
Faith, you wanna start us off?
Sure, Zach. Thank you. The Georgia Vote is the coolest Georgia political show you will ever see in your entire life. Am I hyping it up enough?
Oh, you can put that
That's
on
good.
our
That's
bumper
very good.
sticker.
That's great. That's great.
We cover everything local politics. It comes on after Meet the Press, maybe a program you may or may not have heard of on NBC. So really the goal kind of with our show is you get your national headlines with Meet the Press, and then you stay tuned for all of your local headlines. And we air every Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on 11 Alive, NBC Atlanta. If you're not in Atlanta or you're busy at 11 a.m. on Sunday, you can catch us streaming on 11 Alive Plus and 11alive.com.
There are a lot of ways to find us, which is good. And people have been finding us, which has been really fun. Mitch, you said it's a new-ish show and kind of emphasis on the ish. You were very kind because I know we've been working on putting this conversation together for a little while now. So I'm glad it finally has happened. But we are coming up on our 1 year anniversary of the show, and I want to make sure I get this exactly right because we're probably 11 months in. The first show was on April 28th of last year, so April 28th so next month will be 12 months for the program, and it really started kind of with the idea that we wanted to, and 11 Alive wanted to create a program, a spot where we could spend a little more time with newsmakers, where audiences could see the folks who represent them, the folks who want to represent them, answer questions in depth, have a conversation, and two, make sure we were kind of grounding the program each week in real people and regular people's lives. One of the segments that we've had on from the very beginning that people tell us they really enjoy, we call it Voice of the Voter. And it's always our capper. It runs at the very end of the program. And each week, we go out to somebody in Metro Atlanta, to a space they're comfortable to.
Or beyond.
Or beyond. I mean, think big
He
Metro
went
Atlanta.
fly fishing up in Dahlonega.
I guess, yes, that's the definition of Metro Atlanta when you stretch it like a TV DMA a little bit. But, we go out and visit folks in their own lives and give them a lot of time. I mean, 3-4 minutes, which is, as you know, a ton of time in TV time when it's always tight.
Yeah.
And open the floor and say, hey, what matters most to you? What are you worried about? What are you optimistic about? And Faith, you've done a ton of these. I've gotten to do a bunch, and it's people are smart and good and thoughtful, and we all know this from living in real life. But sometimes when you're just in the grind of news and headlines, you sometimes can miss that. So we've been really excited to have that as a core piece of the heart of the program.
And you just get another perspective as well, because all of us were in it deep into that inside baseball of politics. But your everyday person, they might get something on Instagram, or they might turn into a newscast once in a while. So you just get a different perspective.
Well, and again, I think sometimes we get so much into you get the pundits and the professors and the political experts, right? You kind of got to remember who this is actually affecting, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And people are really smart. People are really, really smart. And I don't want to say surprised, because I'm not, because one of the great things about our job is we get to spend time with all sorts. It really is my favorite part of the job is you just meet all different kinds of people from all different kinds of lives and lifestyles. But we don't pre-screen who we talk to for this segment. We don't ask, hey, what are your political leanings? And so we don't know. And I've never, I don't think you have either, have gone into one of these Voice of the Voter segments and not come out saying, whoa, that was a really thoughtful person. And they had some great insight, and they're clearly really thinking through big, complicated topics that happen in Washington and happen at the state capitol, but impact everybody's lives.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's so important is to talk to the people who have different perspectives about it, because and Georgia is such a I don't know, we voted red kind of sort of the last time, but there's a lot of blue in the state, and it's kind of divided into different, the major urban areas might be one color, but rural areas might be, outside of those cities might be another color. So, and people have strong opinions, right?
Battleground Georgia, right? I mean, that's the way that it's been described.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, Faith, I'm curious for your thoughts, but to me, as a journalist, I think it's a gift to work in a state where everybody's vote is so consequential. And everywhere in our country, your vote matters, full stop. But when you're in like you said, Mitch, a really narrowly politically divided state where we see presidential elections swinging from 2016 to 2020 to 2024. We see Georgia now has 2 Democratic United States senators, whereas not too long ago we had 2 Republican U.S. senators. Being an informed and educated and thoughtful voter, it can be a really empowering thing, because what you do in the ballot box can really make a huge difference. And for us to get to hopefully help people be more informed about what choices they want to make, to me is it's a gift.
And we're heading into a quite a political Georgia voter year next year, right? We've got governor's race and a Senate race, among various other things. What are your thoughts on how that's going to shake out? And are you thinking anything kind of different or unusual, different or any kind of anything specific for the show as you roll into that?
Well, I'd like to insert a plug. Please watch, because we talk about this almost every Sunday, the look ahead to 2026, because it is going to be an incredible run. I do want to backtrack a little bit, since we're talking about the governor's race and a Senate race, just to talk about how the electorate is here in Georgia and how unique it is. Because think about back to Governor Kemp's race. You had all of Georgia. Kemp led and eventually beat Stacey Abrams. But a lot of the same people who voted for Governor Kemp voted for Raphael Warnock, enough that knocked them into a runoff between, of course, Herschel Walker and Warnock eventually becoming the senator. But you have a senator in Warnock who is a minister. He's highly Democrat. And then you have an extremely conservative governor, people who felt that they liked both of those. I think that's what we're going to see heading into 2026. Of course, it's still very, very early, but we know that there are going to be a lot of people throwing their hat in the ring. Zach, did you speak to one of the candidates already? I want to tee you up for this.
Yeah, we have spoken to a lot of people who are in the maybe flirtation stage.
There are people that are already in
yes, and I don't want to give that away, because
we're not going to give it away.
Tune in next weekend.
Okay, well, we've got one on the Republican side that threw his hat in really early, right?
So Attorney General Chris Carr, he's officially in. He's jumped in with both feet. He says he's running for governor in 2026. There's a whole host of other folks on the Republican side and on the Democratic side who are in some stage of considering it, publicly floating that they are considering it. Democratic U.S. Congresswoman Lucy McBath. We're taping this on Thursday. Today's Thursday. Just yesterday, she announced that she's formed an exploratory committee, which is the kind of thing you do when, at the very least, you're strongly considering running for governor. This is a good point to mention, too. We spent some time talking about the voice of the voter, which is a key segment of our program. And we think the show really is human-focused, human-centered, real people-centered. But part of that is making sure that regular folks who are watching our show get to hear from their elected officials. You mentioned Senator Raphael Warnock. You mentioned Governor Brian Kemp, Senator John Ossoff, and these are all folks who have been on our show.
Yes,
each
exactly.
program has an extended sit-down interview with a major Georgia lawmaker, or increasingly 2 or 3 each week.
This weekend, 4.
Which is great, because
and I just wanted to talk about the growth of the show. When we first started the show, we have our meetings on Thursdays because we pre-tape on Fridays, and then it airs on Sundays unless there's breaking news, which has happened. Then you have to do a show live on Sunday. But I remember at the beginning, April 28th of 2024. We were trying to get people to come on the show. Nobody knew what the Georgia vote was. They're like, well, why would we sit down with you? And from really scrambling to try to get that big name, those newsmakers that people cared about, to now you have people calling and wanting to be on the program. And that, I think that just speaks to the work that we put in as a team, but also the hunger and appetite there is for not just the elected officials, but for people who are watching to learn more. And I think that the elected officials are getting some feedback from the show. Some of them are watching. Thank you guys for watching. Continue to do that. But even as we move into 2026, like you mentioned, Lucy McBath, we've had former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has indicated that she could be interested in doing a governor's run.
State Senator Jason Estevez, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones on the Republican side. Yeah,
it's we have a growing family. All of you all, by the way, if you're watching this right now, you're welcome back anytime. And yeah, so it's one of those things. It's a raw conversation. It's political, but it's not. It's for me, and I think the same for Zach. We're just asking questions that people simply want to know. It's not a gotcha game. It's not trying to trick anybody. It's just a plain conversation about, here's what people are saying. This is what we heard about through the week. And here's a platform for you to say your piece. Another thing that we truly pride in our show is being balanced. A lot of cable news nowadays, depending on what hour you watch, it's skewed to the left or the right. I think that with local news, and especially our program, we try to do, and we not just try, we are very, very adamant about.
Too. I mean, that's
being right in the middle.
And it takes, I'm going to choose my words carefully here. It takes a lot of work to put on a newscast that is fair, that's equitable, that makes sure that a lot of different viewpoints are represented. It's easy to, or it would be, to take shortcuts and only hear from one side, and do a lot of things that perhaps in some other spaces that happens. That doesn't happen here, and that's not what our audience looks like. Our audience looks like a big, diverse group of folks from a lot of different places and a lot of different viewpoints, and we owe it to them to make sure that they're watching something and A, hopefully feel like they're represented in some way, and B, hopefully if we're doing our jobs well, they have a moment or two where they think, you know what? I thought this thing about this person who's being interviewed, and at the end of it, maybe I think a little differently now, or I've got something to mull over. That's all.
You guys are. I'm sorry, Jessie. I didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, I was just saying, having that platform where you're not being yelled at or shouted over, or cut off every 2 seconds. Just here's the platform. Say your piece and let people decide. Of course, we're journalists, so if there's something that needs to be checked or followed up on, we're going to do that. But it's not a program of yelling or trying to point fingers saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. It's just getting back to the basics of journalism.
And what I have found from watching the show is that it's an opportunity to kind of, as Zach, as you said, to get beyond just a soundbite. You've got 3 or 4 minutes to have that conversation with someone back and forth. So yeah, I'm sure obviously there's editing if someone goes on
there is, but we also post the full interviews,
which could be 10 minutes long.
At least,
could be more.
Our digital department occasionally will give me a little sticky note and say, hey, that 30-minute interview was great. It took a long time to upload to the web platform.
My interview with Senator Hank Johnson was 40 minutes long. I think that was the longest one I've done.
The Congressman Johnson. Yeah.
I said Senator. Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Congressman Hank Johnson.
I think I went 42 recently, but that's the real, folks now have been on the show. We must have talked to most of at least kind of North Georgia, Metro Atlanta, expanded Metro Atlanta's congressional delegation. We've talked with both U.S. senators. We talked with Governor Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. We talked to Secretary Raffensperger, Gabriel Sterling, the Secretary of State's office, Stacey Abrams, you name it. We've had Vice President J.D. Vance on the program. We've had then Vice Presidential candidate Governor Tim Walz. You talked to him. And what sometimes folks will say is, you know, it as an interviewee, they'll comment kind of after we wrap up, and they'll say something to the effect of, boy, it's unusual to have a conversation that long. You know, usually we got a 20-second soundbite.
Yeah. Or you do a 10-minute interview and it gets chopped down to a 10-second soundbite. Yeah, which, you know, that's TV, right?
And there's you know, there's nothing wrong with that. There's kind of economies of time that you've got to get a lot of news into a certain amount. But we have, I think I feel a little spoiled that we get to spend that time and let our audience spend that time. And, you know, it's not like having the governor in your living room, but it's you know, you get to hear from him and hear Faith talking to him for 3-4 minutes. You get a sense of where somebody stands after that.
Yeah, you know, I agree. You get a lot more from that kind of interview than from a 5-second soundbite, because there's, as you said, there's more depth to it and more context. Who are you? Are there folks that you look at and goes, I wish we could get more of these folks or this perspective? Is there anything that you feel like you're having a challenge getting?
Do you feel that way?
I'd love to talk to some celebrities, some non-political celebrities. Come on down. No, I say that to say, because it's funny, but we live, you know, in Atlanta, which is the Mecca. So many like huge names in entertainment and pop culture. We haven't done much of that, and a lot of those names really do have a lot of weight in the political sphere of our state of Georgia. So that's one thing that I would like to do a little bit more of.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in that way. Is we have had some folks who are kind of entertainment space adjacent on, but yeah, that's a good point. I think, I don't know, Mitch, you asked that question, and to me, there's always more we can be doing. There's always more people and new people we could be bringing on the program, and so it's not to say that, you know, we're batting 1,000. We're not, but I think over the almost year we have had a pretty good spread of elected officials and everyday folks. And we should mention, we have our weekly roundtable panel too of sort of political experts. And we really were careful. We're lucky. We have a lot of folks who've been on the program a lot now who are thoughtful and really know their craft. These are political experts, folks who work in the political space. They're campaign strategists or consultants. They've either worked for the Republican Party, the Democratic Party in their past. I mean, pretty savvy folks. And they definitely bring a point of view, but they can also, and they do get along with each other too. I've had people comment sometimes to say, oh, that's especially in the heat of the 2024 presidential campaign, when there was, and understandably, a lot of tension and a lot of really big, high stakes things happening. Occasionally someone would say, well, I haven't seen a Democrat and a Republican on TV get along like that.
Not yelling.
And be able to talk about really sensitive and complicated issues, but also kind of end with, you know, a pat on the back or a laugh or something at the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see that much.
Act like, you know, people.
Yeah. Well, and that's the trick is as we keep having this national conversation of, you know, how can we have a national debate and discuss the issues without getting vicious or insulting or personal about it? And, you know, yeah, I'm not going to get too far into that because that's a whole nother conversation, right?
I think, and just to put a little footnote on that, I mean, the thing that I think of a lot is, and try to do, I think Faith is sometimes probably better at this than I am, but, you know, focus more light, less heat. You know, we want to illuminate an issue and help you see where you stand and make up your own mind, but do it with light, not so much heat.
Right. And your segments are also, and I also noticed that sometimes your segments are used on the other newscasts, obviously, if you've got something that is relevant or makes sense to use as part of another story. I've seen that quite a bit. So you get that additional, you know, for folks who are on the show, they say, okay, it's great that I'm on Sunday, but they might also be on Monday. Yes, the segments run again on the week. I always tell clients, doing interviews on Sunday afternoons is the best thing because then the Monday morning producers always pull that.
We interviewed former Georgia Senator, the Republican Kelly Loeffler on Monday. I talked with her, and parts of our interview were in the Monday evening newscasts. I don't know for a fact, but I would strongly imagine some of it was in our Tuesday morning newscast and our Tuesday morning streaming show, and a big chunk of that conversation will be in our Sunday show on the Georgia Vote too.
Yeah, I saw at least one of your segments with her. And I will say, just FYI, Usher apparently is going to be doing the commencement address at Emory University in May. So I'm just saying, he's in town, and Emory's not that far from Channel 11. So
It could be good.
I'm thinking he could just stop by after
My
graduation.
question is, would he walk in or skate in? I would prefer the skates. I'm just saying.
I'll check with the Emory folks and see because we do some work with them. So I'll see if they have an in for you to get Usher on the show. You never know. I mean, I don't know where he lives. He's got houses in Atlanta and Chattanooga, the last I heard, but I'm sure he's all over the place. So let's do a little bit of background. So Zach, let me start with you. So where did you come from before this illustrious career at Channel 11? What's your rise to power? The rise to fame. The rise to fame.
I don't think I have I certainly don't have a great deal of power or fame, but I'm very grateful for the job I do have, and I get to do it with Faith and so many other really awesome people here at 11 Alive. My Cliff Notes story, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I am not a native Georgian. But my first job in news was in Georgia. It was in Macon, Georgia, and I'd never lived in the South. I was a New England boy, and a lot of my family's still up north. And I moved to Macon, and a lot of my friends were like, "What are you doing in Macon, Georgia? Like, how did you decide to go here? What is this plan?" I just got a really good feeling about it, and loved getting to work in Georgia. Loved the station I was at there, and spent 3 years there. And then I moved up to DC for a while, worked in news in Washington. But when a chance to come back to Atlanta opened up a couple summers ago now, about 2 years ago, I knew I wanted to jump on it. I was lucky everything worked out, and they, the folks here at Channel 11, welcomed me in, and it was a very busy news stretch from the summer of 2023.
Can I butt in here really quick because
Please.
Zach came in right when Donald Trump was getting indicted.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
Fulton
that
County,
was
and it
like
must
3
have been
weeks
your,
after I
your
got
first
there.
month. And we had Zach on because if you didn't know, Zach went to law school.
Yeah.
So we had him on as almost our legal analyst. It was myself, Jeff Hellinger,
Yeah.
and Zach for hours on end. And that was your first month.
Yeah, that was because at first came the federal indictment of now President Trump, the federal election indictment, and then shortly after it was the Fulton County election indictment. And it was talk about a really heavy, serious, complicated news moment that we were in. And when you're the new guy, everyone's kind of looking at you like, oh, what's this guy about? And people were very kind and patient and generous with me. But when you're new, you're looking around at the team you're now with too, and trying to get a sense of where everybody was. And I was just so grateful because you don't ever really know until you're kind of in the door. But I was just so grateful even in those moments that I was around people who were so smart and thoughtful in really complicated moments of just doing solid, good journalism in a moment where it really demanded it. So I've been really lucky to get to work with folks like Faith and everybody else here.
Which station were you at in Macon?
I was at 13 WMAZ, our sister station.
MAZ? Yep.
A great station.
The Middle Georgia powerhouse, right?
It is.
All right. Faith, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I was born here in Atlanta. I'm a North Side baby. I grew up in Tampa, Florida. And then I went all the way on the other side of the country to go to school at the University of Southern California. Started in journalism school, actually hated journalism. So then switched
I didn't know that. Look at you now.
Call people and bother them and put mics in people's faces. Who wants to do that? So I switched to PR and marketing, and then I interned at the National Association of Black Journalists. During that internship, I realized that I did like journalism. It wasn't what I had thought or saw, the kind of extreme type of, if it leads, old school type of stuff. There's so many different pathways that I could take. And I fell in love with it at that convention and just around the people. So I, did it the kind of local news pathway, went up to Binghamton, New York, which is upstate New York.
It's cold there.
Very cold. Southern tier, it's about 2 hours south of Syracuse, about an hour east of Cornell. Never been to New York. First time I saw snow, all that. So that was interesting.
That's cool. That's cool.
Really cool first market. From there, I was there for a year, went to Vegas, where I actually started covering politics in New York, because at that time, that was 2015. So that was the campaign trail with Trump and Clinton. I came to Vegas. My first story was that last debate that they did at UNLV in Vegas. A lot of fireworks in that debate, right? And that was one of my first stories that I covered.
I didn't know that. Wow.
I was at the NBC affiliate in Vegas, KSNV. There for 4 years, continuing to cover politics. I did a small sports stint.
You're taking I was gonna, if I was ever asked a fun fact about you, that's the one I.
That was for like one season, which was super, like, I didn't know anything about hockey. We didn't have a sports reporter at the time, and they came to the morning people and they were like, who wants to do this? I'm like, I'll do it.
That was the first season?
That was the first season, yep. And they went all the way to, obviously, the finals. They didn't get the cup that year, or they went to the playoff. Did they go to the finals that year? Yeah. Did they?
I was never a sports reporter, so I don't know.
I'm sure they went all the way to the final that year, and they did not win. Fact check me on that. It's been a while. I haven't covered hockey since.
They had a great start.
We may have a graphic at the bottom that said they didn't win.
There we go. Yeah,
I'll go back and check that. All right, so we're gonna jump into the little bit of the lightning round here, and these answers don't have to be long. So I'm gonna go first with Jessie and say, Jessie, what is something fun and cool about you that people might not know, other than the fact that you did report on hockey for a season?
Yeah, no, I'll make fun of you a little bit here because I do have two first names. So people will typically sometimes call me Jess or Jessie or Faith.
I did call you Jessie, didn't I?
No, it's funny. No, it's funny because it happens all the time, like even in email. So that's one kind of fun fact, is that I do have two first names, because most people are like, is that your TV name? I'm like, nope, that's my government name on my birth certificate.
Email's the worst about it too, because sometimes it does last name, comma, first name. It's setting you up for trouble.
I get called Jeff all the time, which I can't figure out. Because it's Leff, but it's people will respond to emails going, "Hey Jeff, what about this?" And I'm like, my name's not Jeff. And if you look like right below it's Leff Jeff. That's where it happened. So yeah, so I am sensitive. So sorry if I mixed up your name there.
No, I was just thinking that was funny because it happens all the time. And then another fun fact, I have a rescue dog. It's a typical reporter story, doing a story at a shelter, went back, got the dog, and I've had her, that was in Las Vegas, so I've had her now for almost 10 years, which is crazy. Yeah.
All right, Zach, how about you? What's the coolest thing about Zach that people might not know?
Oh, I don't know. Also, sorry, I feel like such a dork being on my phone here. This is what our day looks like.
It's crossover day, by the way. We're filming this on crossover day.
So there's a lot happening in the Capitol. There's a lot happening in the building. I don't. I no longer am. I certainly don't look like it anymore. But I got to play sports through college. I was a rower, and through a lot of my post-college time too, I've been still involved with the sport. I don't get to row as much as I did when I was in DC, but just that's always been a fun outlet for me. And now it's a little hard for me to get up to the Chattahoochee, where there's a lot of rowing here in the Atlanta area, but I run a lot. I like doing trail runs. There's all sorts of cool stuff happening around the state, and it's a fun weekend trip to go drive couple hours ago, run around in the woods, and it's a good release. I like that a lot.
Blue Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to find a picture of you rowing and insert that here, Jack. All right,
they're out there. They're out there.
All right, so Zach, last book you read?
Ooh, last book I read. This might not be the very last one I've read, but the one that might be surprising is I just finished Dune. I'd never read Dune.
The first Dune? Okay.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me. I didn't realize there were a bunch of them. But obviously, the movies are out now. There's a lot of hullabaloo about them, and I like sci-fi, I like fantasy books, and had just never gotten into it, and I picked it up. I really enjoyed it.
There's like 20 of them.
Yeah, that's what I found out. I'm having a hard time getting through the start of the second one, but I really like the first one.
Yeah, some of them take a little work. Okay, Faith, last book that you've read.
I love a good murder mystery, suspense, nonfiction, because I feel like we read news so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a getaway. So I'm actually reading right now The Maid. I believe the author's name is Nita Prose or Prost. I think it's Prose. But it's I actually picked it up at the airport when I was on a layover, and I just read the back and I was like, oh, this is spicy. And I'm really enjoying it. It's about a maid that found a dead body in one of the hotel rooms, and it's like, who did it? So yeah.
I've been working my way through the old Agatha Christie novels, which are surprisingly still held up fairly well. Okay, favorite local restaurant. Faith, we'll start with you.
My favorite local restaurant. I mean, there's so much good food in Atlanta, but I have to say one place where I felt so much love. It's called the Third Space on the Beltline. A good friend of mine, his husband and wife duo from Israel, they own it. It's a farm to table restaurant. There's no menu.
Oh,
so you just go in and eat what they prepare. They have a tiered price system, so you pay what you feel the meal was worth.
Wow.
And if you drink wine or anything like that, they let you drink as long as you want until the restaurant closes. So it's called the Third Space on the Beltline. And I actually walked in there by mistake. I thought it was a different place.
It was fate. You were.
Don't they have games or something too there? Are there games also? Is it just a restaurant?
I think so. You're thinking about the Third Place. I think,
okay.
Which is kind of like the arcade. This is called the Third Space, and it's right off the Beltline, near Auburn Avenue.
All right, Zach, favorite restaurant?
That. I'm going to try that place. That sounds great.
You can't choose the same one that Faith chose.
No, I'm not. I have. Do not worry. I get out. I'm not here 24/7 at work. Though sometimes.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
flying.
Well, I don't know.
Like an apartment in the
don't give away all my secrets. No. There's a really great tiny little neighborhood restaurant and bar called Dead End, which sounds bleak, but it's not. Dead End Bar and Restaurant or Bar and Drinks or whatever it is. It's over in sort of the Edgewood, Kirkwood neighborhood area. Just a really awesome, true neighborhood sort of spot where if you go, it's people you see around the neighborhood. It's really small. They probably have a dozen tables inside, maybe another half dozen benches outside in a little bar area. People are just nice and friendly, and you actually have conversations with other people who you haven't met before, and it's a fun spot. I probably get there every couple months, and you walk in and they're like, "Oh, hey, Zach, how you been?" I mean, it's a cool place.
So before I forget, Zach, your schedule is it more dayside 9 to 7?
Yeah, I would say more or less.
What schedule?
Yeah,
Ish.
I mean,
Ish,
it's
between 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably similar to Faith, right? But when news happens, like it does,
yeah. And
we
Faith,
tend to be there.
And Faith, which shows are you anchoring now?
I anchor the 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. every day.
4 and 5.
So about the same hours as Zach. But I mean, I feel like because we're both on the special projects investigative team, so our work really, it goes beyond hours. It's really just like when the need is there, we pick up the phone. Yeah.
Campaign season obviously is busy too. With a lot.
I wanted to make sure I mentioned when you're anchoring.
Sure.
So folks,
4 p.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Watch those shows. They're great.
And Zach also comes on.
Every now and then I'll make a cameo appearance.
and Zach's here too.
Yeah.
Okay. So Zach, favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh man. I really like if I have a free couple hours, I'm doing laundry or something. And when you're doing laundry and you can't go out, you can't do anything because you got to stay and, do your chores. I'll play 15-year-old computer games that, I played in high school or whatever. And it's great. I love it.
Roller Coaster Tycoon?
I'm a big nerd. Close. Yeah. I mean, that sort of family. I'm a big dork like that, but I enjoy that.
We're gonna get you out to MomoCon. in May and let you play some video games. Uh,
I might take up
Faith,
on that.
Faith, favorite guilty pleasure.
I love house music and like techno music, and I used to go to like all these cool like raves and dance parties when I was in my 20s. So anytime I try to find a dance party. There's a really fun dance club called MJQ. They moved to Underground Atlanta. I haven't been in quite some time, but the DJs there are so fun and the people are just so nice. And so I love getting out and dancing every once in a while to the techno scene.
I just
Very
want to
good.
quickly caveat here. That's not a guilty pleasure.
Is that not?
No, I like house music too. When I was in high school, I was in the whole like underground music scene. I wasn't doing my homework. I was downloading all these like IDs and club rips and stuff.
LimeWire?
Yeah, well, no, I was more advanced than that. I just want to be clear.
I feel like the theme here
I-
is Zach's
I-
trying to say I'm as cool as Faith
I
is
just
what
want
is the
to,
theme I'm seeing here.
elevate my status here a little bit.
You're stuck playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and Zach with baseball doing laundry.
Yeah, can
Yeah, okay. So, Zach, what's your favorite local getaway? What's a good place you like to go?
I really like getting up to North Georgia, the Blue Ridge area. I love the coast too, so going to the Savannah area or Tybee, St. Simons, areas like that. But there's probably a time every 3 to 6 months where I'm just like, I've got to get out of my house and get out of the city for, sometimes you don't even take any time off. You just go, and I'll get like a little tiny little Airbnb cabin as far away from everything as I can find up in the mountains and just go up and unwind. That's great.
Faith, what about you?
I gotta say
Favorite?
the same thing with Zach. Like I used to be a huge hiker. I've kind of gotten out of my hiking shine, but when I was in upstate New York, that's when it started. So going up to Blue Ridge is kind of the closest, drive 2 or 3 hours and you're just surrounded and it's really beautiful.
It's such a treat. I mean, Metro Atlanta is such a great spot in Georgia too, because there is so much. You start in downtown Atlanta and you point your compass in any direction. You go 3 hours and you're going to be in a really different and beautiful place.
One of the reasons why we have such a great film opportunity here in Georgia
Yeah.
too, right? Okay, last question. So, Zach, favorite non-work hobby?
I really enjoy running. I like sports. For a long time, it was rowing for me. It's just such a great outlet. And now, I I make myself sound lamer and lamer as I go here. But when it gets dark at night, you get home from work and I'll still go out and run. I have this little headlamp that I wear and I jog around my neighborhood. People are like,
Professional.
who is this guy at 8:30 at night? Like, running very slowly.
You need
But that's a great
you need a
outlet
good
for me. I really
you need
love it.
a good reflective vest too.
I'm on the sidewalks, but I did recently get a pair of headphones that are, they don't go in your ears. They're like bone induction ones. So my ears are open. So I can hear if, I don't know, a car is coming or something.
Sorry, Molly Oak was calling me. I got to tell her I'm going to call her right back.
Molly. We love Molly.
All right. Okay. Faith, favorite non-work hobby?
Could I give you an acronym, 3 letters?
Sure.
PTO.
No, that's a good.
I love a good trip. I mean, you can't take trips all the time, but I mean, gosh, if I can pull my passport out, find a decently priced flight and just get away for a little bit. And then on a more reasonable note, I love a good museum.
You're really good. Faith is really good about that. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times we're doing Georgia Vote stuff and getting ready for the rest of the weekend or the next couple of days, and we'll be kind of wrapping up and say, oh, what are you doing this weekend? And just say, got my passport. I'm going to this international place and that international place.
My boyfriend lives in New York, so the long distance thing. So most of the times
I mean, you've got a lot of good kind of international trips too.
I try to.
You're better about
You gotta spend your money abroad and not. Well, no, just kidding. Spend your money locally.
Travel is good. Travel's good, but enjoy Atlanta too.
Enjoy Atlanta.
It's good advice.
Let's just that part out. I'm kidding.
All right. Thank you both. This has been great. We've been talking with Faith Jessie and Zach Merchant, the hosts of the Georgia Vote on 11 Alive, which airs Sunday mornings at 11:30. Right? Is that right? 11 a.m.
Yeah.
11 a.m. 11 a.m. to 11:30. Right.
That's right.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And as always, folks, tune in 2 weeks for the next edition of our 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight. You can listen on YouTube or on the video part, or go to anywhere you get your audio podcasts and listen to it that way. And if you want to find our database of Atlanta media, go to lessatlantamedia.com. And don't forget to click the subscribe button somewhere if you're watching this on whatever you're watching this on, and share it with your friends. Zach and Faith, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.